I really feel like the Spurs organization and Spurs fans in general are in denial. The Spurs as a franchise became a model organization with a combination of a great system and amazing management and extreme luck. Making all-stars out of late-round picks in Tony Parker, who was taken 28th in 2001, and Manu Ginobili, who was taken 57th in 1999. Now believe me, I don't take what the Spurs organization has been able to do lightly. I'm aware that Greg Popovich is the greatest coach of all time, and that the Spurs have created a winning pedigree for their franchise. But, as a result, I feel like the Spurs have become impervious to criticism. When researching this video, I couldn't find a single article questioning the future of the Spurs. And that's because, don't worry, the Spurs got this. It's the Spurs. That's what they do. They've won 5 championships. Yeah, no, you're talking about those 5 rings as if there weren't a couple of very precise circumstances that led to those rings. And by the way, those 5 rings all spanned over the career of Tim Duncan, the greatest power forward of all time. Tim is synonymous with the Spurs, but the only reason the Spurs got Duncan was that David Robinson got injured 6 games into the 96-97 season, resulting in the Spurs getting that first-round pick. So if Robinson didn't get injured, the Spurs would not have 5 championships. If they didn't get both Manu and Parker late in their draft, they wouldn't have won 5 championships. Now, I wouldn't disagree with the idea that Manu and Parker wouldn't have been as good on other franchises. But at a certain point, players are just talented. Manu and Parker still would have been stars elsewhere. But people talk about the Spurs' ability to develop talent as though it's some magical force. What about Beno Udrih, a career third-string point guard, taken 28th by the Spurs in 2004? Or Ian Mahinmi, drafted 58th by the Spurs in 2005? Or James Anderson, taken 20th by the Spurs in 2010? Why didn't these guys prosper into stars? Because they were never going to be stars regardless of what team they were on. My point is, the Spurs as a franchise was a combination of, yes, great management and coaching, but also a lot of luck that no one seems to account for. So the whole point of this is, where the Spurs are at now, Kawhi Leonard is now the man. I would say where he is on my top 10 rankings to exemplify how good I think he is, but if I do that, everyone in the comment section will only comment on that and not the subject of the video. Anyways, Kawhi is an elite two-way player, and he's good enough to be a franchise player, but when you look at the rest of the roster, it's pretty worrisome. It's almost like the Spurs are in a competition with the rest of the league for having the oldest team in the league, and they're kicking ass in that competition. Old man Tony, 35 years old. Older man Gasol, 37 years old. Oldest man Manu, 40 years old. Now, I know people will say, well, back in 2014, people said that they were too old to win. Well, that was 2014. With Tim Duncan. The old men have become even older. In 2014, Tim Duncan was still good enough to average 15, 10, and 2 blocks. And Tony Parker was still a top-tier point guard, averaging 17 points and 6 assists. And Manu was averaging 12 a game off the bench. And with their aging bones, basketball genius Greg Popovich started resting starters, which, as controversial as it has definitely helped the Spurs stay atop the league with older players. And he implemented a system based on ball movement and not Tim Duncan post-ups that worked in earlier years but no longer were a go-to option. Pop made the best of an okay situation, and they beat the Miami Heat, who were also on their last legs with a mediocre coach behind them. But this is 2017 now. No one had the Spurs winning in 2015 after that title, even with the emergence of Kawhi, because the Spurs just got too old. So now the roster is made up of Kawhi and 14 random people selected from a retirement home. There are a few salvageable pieces though. Danny Green is still a good role player. Same for Patty Mills, and I think Rudy Gay could do really well with a fantastic head coach. But is that really it? I like DeJounte Murray as much as the next guy, but I don't think he will be a star. People only say he will be a star because he was selected by the Spurs, and of course, every late round pick by the Spurs is legendary. You know, Ian Mahinmi and Beno Udrih, fucking legends those guys are. I only really see Murray as a starting point guard, but that's about it. But this roster is in no way competing with the Warriors. Kawhi is one of my favorite players in the NBA, and believe me, as a Bulls fan, I loved watching the Spurs smack the Heat in 2014. But this team isn't equipped to truly compete. Kawhi can't do it by himself. LeBron couldn't do it by himself when the Warriors didn't even have KD. And as a result of still being a top-tier team, the picks they got will continuously be around the 20s. And don't expect to just stumble upon another Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili again, because you can't rely on that improbability. Maybe they could have a free agent signing, but all I'm saying is this. I've seen this before. Reggie Miller on the Pacers, Dominique Wilkins on the Hawks, Vince Carter on the Raptors. Elite perimeter players wasting their time on teams that won't win rings. But of course, for Kawhi's case, that would be won't win them rings again. This video is just to point out that the Spurs are in trouble, and I feel like no one seems to talk about it. It might seem like I dislike the Spurs in this video. I really don't. They're one of my favorite teams in the NBA, but we can't just keep not talking about this. That's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.
I dare you play your cards, boy, you bet I'm a trendsetter too. Fire when the strobe hits you.
That's it, Brian? Yes.